and welcome to the fourth edition of the Investing GH webinar series. My name is Eric Baniapo, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. Our topic for today is the cost of building a house in Ghana. And joining us for today's discussion, we have Dr. Kenneth Donkor-Hyiaman and surveyor Yaw Osei-Owusu. About our first speaker, Dr. Kenneth Donkor-Hyiaman is a real estate economist and specializes in real estate finance and investment. He has a decade of experience in consulting for many local and international organizations, including serving as a housing specialist at the World Bank Group. He is also the immediate past executive secretary of the construction sector of the Association of Ghana Industries. Educated in both Ghana and the United Kingdom, he holds a doctorate degree in real estate finance and economics from the University of Reading and a master's degree in philosophy in planning, growth, and regeneration from the University of Cambridge. He is currently the university lecturer in real estate development, real estate finance, and land economics at the Department of Land Economy of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. He is also a Commonwealth Scholar and a co-founder of Metis Brokers and PropIntel Limited, both being estate consultancy firms. About our second speaker for today, surveyor Yaw Osei-Owusu. He is a goal-oriented person with drive and initiative and has the ability to work effectively and efficiently, and has built considerable experience in project development, cost engineering, preparing tender and contract documents, among others. He is currently the managing partner at Metis Brokers and Syndicated Green Developers, and the cost manager at Turner & Townsend, a quantity surveying consultancy company. We thank both our speakers for finding the time to join us today. And to all our viewers, we hope this topic is an informative one that would help you make decisions moving forward in life. As always, you can type your questions in the chat box or ask our speakers directly at the end of the presentation. Also, we're streaming live on YouTube. So if you like what we're doing and you're happy about the progress we've made so far, please do what to subscribe and like all our videos to support us. With that being said, I'd like to invite Dr. Hyiaman to take over the presentation.
Okay, Eric, thank you very much for the opportunity to share knowledge and information with people who are interested in building a house in Ghana. Indeed, I must say that Yaw and myself have been partners in delivering similar services to individuals and to various organizations at various levels of consultancy. And so we see this opportunity as a bigger platform where, of course, we have the opportunity to meet a larger group of people to discuss these issues with. Yes, and so once again, thank you very much for organizing this webinar. Yes, so our presentation will be in three forms or in three sessions. In the first session, I will give us some kind of an idea of what the cost frame is for anyone who wants to build or put up a building in Ghana. And then that will not be enough. And so I would bring in the cost consultant, who is surveyor Yaw Osei-Owusu, to give you some estimates of how much the components of a building will cost if you attempt to put up a building yourself. And then we will enter into a Q&A section where participants will have the opportunity to interact with us, ask questions, and then we would respond to those questions. So without much ado, I would share my slide, a very short slide with the participants, and then we can move into the conversation. Okay, so the topic for today is the cost of building a house in Ghana. Yeah, so the very first thing we will be interested in looking at has got to do with what the cost components of a building are. And for anyone who wants to put up anything, provide any good or service, the economist will tell you that there's something called factors of production. So these are the factors that you combine to be able to deliver any good or service, okay? And these same factors of production apply to buildings as well. So in this diagram, you see these factors of production. So one of them is land, which is very important if you are building, if you are constructing a building. You would also need some form of capital. So the capital, unlike land, is the artificial tools and resources you need to put together to put up the building. So for example, you need maybe a wheelbarrow. That is a form of capital. And then you also need labor. So labor in many forms will be described as human capital. So the person who will move to the field to lay the bricks for you, to dig the trenches, to fix your window, to fix your door, to fix the roof. All of these are people you would typically classify as labor. And then whoever has or comes up with an idea to build a house may be classified as an entrepreneur. And typically, entrepreneurs are people who will do this for profit's sake, okay? So at least these are the four traditional components or four traditional factors of production you would encounter if you want to put up a building, okay? But then the nature of building construction is such that oftentimes it is regulated, okay? So in Ghana, buildings are regulated, construction activity is regulated. And so you need to go through a certain regulatory process to be able to get your building permitted, okay? And so in doing that, you may incur additional cost in the form of regulatory cost or cost you would incur in acquiring or obtaining building permits. Then again, typically, usually the government is supposed to provide infrastructure and utility services, okay? But this you would see in many of developed countries. In our part of the world, yeah, the government does that to some limit, but I think to a large extent, we don't happen to see the government extending infrastructure to communities before they are developed. Okay, so we'll say that development often precedes the provision of infrastructure. So usually you'll find that the individuals who put up buildings are those who might incur some kind of infrastructure cost or utility cost by way of extending those services from other areas to where their buildings are. So generally, this is a big cost frame within which we want to have today's discussion. But then I would want to touch on the individual components of the factors of production I've exposed you to. So when we think of the land cost, it can be broken down into three. So you can think of the purchase cost, which is how much you buy the land for. So whoever is selling the land to you would ask for a certain price, which you would often negotiate. So that cost is part of the cost of a building. And then it is the case that once you have paid for the cost of the land, you want to transfer ownership of the land into your name, okay? And so you do that through a registration process. So in going through the registration process, there are some type of cost you might incur. One of them is search cost. Indeed, the search cost might be incurred even before you pay for the land, okay? And the idea of the search cost is to ensure that you are buying land from someone who owns the land. In law, we say that I cannot sell what I do not own to you, okay? Or I cannot give out to you what I do not have. So a landlord who purports to sell land must own the land, and it is up to you as a buyer to do your due diligence by way of searching the title root or the ownership of the land before you buy that. And you would incur some amount of cost in doing that with the Lands Commission. Then again, if you are satisfied that the owner or the one purporting to sell the land to you is the rightful owner, and for that matter, he has the right to sell the land to you, then the person would give you what we call an indenture. Okay, an indenture is basically a deed recording the transaction that has taken place. Okay, this deed is required to be registered with the Lands Commission. Okay, so sometimes the landlords will ask you to pay a certain amount for the deed. These type of costs are variable. It depends on which landlord you are dealing with. And then once he or she has prepared the deed, the indenture for you, you can proceed to the Lands Commission to register that deed. And in so doing, you incur what we call stamp duty cost. Okay, so the Lands Commission will record the transaction in their books and will serve as a witness for the transaction. And so you incur some kind of stamp duty there. And then you may want to proceed to go beyond just recording the deed to transferring the actual title to your name. Okay, so this is where title registration becomes important. And that process also involves some amount of cost. Later on, I will show you some of the fixed costs that the Lands Commission charges for providing these services, and you'll see that. Then, beyond the registration stage or in the process of registration or acquiring the land, there are other incidental costs. So there are two of them. One of them is agency fees. So perhaps you are buying the land through an agent. The agent might charge you 5% or 10% of the value of the land as a fee, okay? And that will add to the cost of the building. And then you might need some legal advice along the way in terms of the agreement you go into with the landlord or even with the agent. Okay, and so the lawyers will also charge you a fee for that matter. And later on, once again, I will show you some of the fees the lawyers might charge you if you want to engage their services. You can see that I've provided links to the Lands Commission website, particularly the fees and charges page, where you will see a list of fees the Lands Commission will charge for providing registration services to you. The second link you see here is also a link to the Ghana Legal Council, which is responsible for setting professional fees for lawyers. And so this link will lead you to the page where professional fees for engaging lawyers have also been prescribed. So you can take a look at that as we move on. Now, the second factor of production, which contributes to the cost of a building, is capital, okay, or is a capital cost. And in terms of capital, I had explained that capital here refers to man-made tools and equipments or materials you will need for putting up the building, okay? So typically, if you want to build a house, you need some form of, let's say, you need some sand, some gravels, aggregates, you need some steel, you need some roof component, you need a window, you need a door, and you also need some tools to put these components together. So for example, to put up the walls of a building, you need to mix, let's say your concrete, you need to mix your cement and all of that. And that you need the tools to the right of the slide. So you need a concrete mixer one way or the other. You need perhaps a poker vibrator, depending on the project you are doing. And a wheelbarrow is almost a necessity, okay, for almost all levels of project development within the building construction space. So these are tools you will need for that matter. Now, typically, the labor you employ might own some of these tools. And so they will charge you for using those tools. If they don't have it, they might be in a position to lead you to perhaps an entrepreneur who owns these tools. In that case, you would have to hire these tools for your building. And then the third factor of production we would like to look at is labor. So labor cost, which will form a vital part of your project. So in here, there is a team called the building team. So the building team is made up of a group of professionals. Usually you find the architect there, you find an engineer there, you find a quantity surveyor, one way or the other, or any of the surveyors, people who form the surveying profession. You may even find a land surveyor in there. And then you may find some artisans or artisans within that space. So you might see you will need a carpenter to do the woodworks for you. You would need a painter to finish the building in terms of applying paint to the building for you. And you will need a mason to put up the structure itself. And then you actually need a labor, or what some people will call a laborer. Okay, in the local parlance, a laborer. He is actually a servant to, say, the mason or even the carpenter. He provides, he helps to carry things around when the building is ongoing. Yeah, so these professionals will charge you a fee for providing their services. An architect will charge you a fee for providing you with a design of a building. Okay, an engineer will come in to look at various components in terms of the structural stability of the project, the mechanical components of the project, and all of that. And they will charge you a fee for that, depending on what you are trying to put up. Yeah, so labor is a very significant component of the cost of a building. Now let's move on to this other component of a building, which has got to do with infrastructure and utility costs. So I had earlier on explained that elsewhere, usually the government will provide infrastructure, which you can easily connect to. But in a part of the world, it is quite difficult for the government to do this for almost every location. And so usually a lot of people will build their houses, and then later on the government will provide these services, one or the other. But then for those people who would go into a community as a first settlers, they would often have to incur a cost of getting the community connected to electricity. And so they might incur a cost in buying the poles to transmit electricity to their individual homes. Water also has a similar application. They might end up buying pipes to connect the water to their homes. And then of course, connecting to the sewage system. That might also result in some cost that anyone who wants to put up a building might incur. Yeah, so at this point, we have an idea of the component cost of a building, okay? And this idea is not enough until you have some idea of the actual estimates that you might incur in your attempt to put up a building. And so I would invite Surveyor Yaw Osei-Owusu to lead us through that section. Thank you very much. And then later on, after his section, I'll come back and then we'll look at questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Yaw. As I've already been introduced, we are going to quickly go through a few costs. I'll start with this, screen one. Yep. Okay. Which one is my screen showing? I hope my screen is showing the correct one, the full screen one, or is it showing the one with the notes?
It's showing the one with the notes, please.
The one with the notes. Okay, let me do this again. Okay. Is it still showing the one with the notes, or is it showing the full screen now?
Currently, nothing is showing.
Nothing. Hold on, please.
Okay, so as Mr. Osei-Owusu is getting his sorted out, please know that we're also streaming live on YouTube. So if you're able to get onto that platform, you see everything that is happening here currently. And you can also get your questions coming in, type them into the chat box, and then we'll go ahead at the end of the presentation to ask all of them. Okay. Okay, so before Mr. Owusu comes through, Mr. Hyiaman, is there any other thing you'd like to add on the presentation before Mr. Owusu settles his issue, and then we take it from there?
At this moment, no, but I might want to look at maybe one particular question whilst he tries to get his thing sorted out, okay? So let's look at one of the questions that participants might be interested in along the line, okay?
Okay, so one question has come from, okay, this is about asking if we are going to provide the slides. Yes, the slides will be provided at the end of the webinar. What we do is we encourage you to subscribe, get onto our webpage and then subscribe. So we'll have your mail. And then when we're done with everything, we send all the documents to your mail. So this one is coming from Isaac Obing. He wants to know if you would get the slides. And yes, the slides and then the recording would all be available at the end of this presentation.
Okay. Is there anything you want to address, or I should go on with one of the questions? I've noted one of the critical questions we've come across in most of the sections we have delivered, or in most of the advisory sections we've had with people. For example, a question like this might come up. For example, do I buy a house or build a house? Yeah, and oftentimes a lot of people are expecting a yes or a no. So for example, do I buy a house? Someone is expecting you to say yes or a no. Do I build a house? Someone is expecting that you say yes or no. And my answer is that it depends. And to a large extent, it depends on your goal as someone who is hoping to own a house, okay? So for example, if you are planning to buy a house, or an already made house is a house you can easily move into, okay? So if you have just limited time to move into maybe a certain location, then buying a house might be more interesting than building a house, especially in our part of the world where, you know, building a house might take you a longer period of time. And even more especially if you do not have all the resources to put up a structure. Okay, so in that case, if you have just a limited amount of time to get into a house, then buying a house might be more interesting. It is also the case that if you already have money at hand, then buying a house might be interesting. Usually people build houses because they do not have all the resources at hand. And so they will spread the construction period incrementally over a period. I think research has shown that usually it will take on average about 5 years for a typical Ghanaian to build a house, okay? So if your resources are limited, then you would prefer to build it over time. Then also issues of quality might come in. it is a case that already built structures, especially the ones delivered by real estate developers, may have used the services of professionals, well-trained professionals. And so they might guarantee a certain level of quality, okay? And so if you are looking out for quality, then of course, buying a house might give you some minimum level of quality, especially if you're buying from an established real estate development company. But then you see this issue of quality also works on the other side, especially if the professionals who worked on the project are not of a higher quality, okay? So I've had instances where people complain to me that the buildings they bought were of inferior quality, okay? And so in their advice to their friends and family, they would often tell them that instead of buying, build it yourself so that you can supervise the process. So depending on how you perceive the quality of buildings developed by other people, you might choose to build it yourself, okay? And then again, if you already have an already built property, someone would have gone through the cumbersome processes of land acquisition, project management, and of course, I mean, all the limitations that might frustrate you in your building process, someone would have overcome that already. And so if you buy it, you buy all of that, okay? Then you prevent yourself from the stress you go through. Indeed, I've watched a number of YouTube videos of people in the diaspora who have complained about they not being able to go through the process of building smoothly because the people they needed to undertake the process were either not being honest with them or I mean, the process was too cumbersome. So if you buy an already built property, you avoid all of that. Unless you are a professional yourself and you understand the process of building and you have access to all the people or the human resources you need to put up a building, typically buying a house might be interesting. Yeah, so this will be my response to anyone who is interested in this question. Do I buy a house or build a house? Okay, it appears Nanaya might be, is trying to get back. And so I would stop sharing my slide and then we can have him, okay?
Okay, yeah. Nanaya, are you live?
Okay. Hello, Ellie. I'm forwarding a message from him to you. Okay. Eric, I forwarded a message to Ellie.
Yes.
So he should have a look at it.
Okay, they'll work on Lego. So he wants to know, for a first timer building his house, is it advisable to go with a building contractor or he or she should work with a foreman? What are the advantages and disadvantages of both?
Of doing that? Okay, that's a good question.
Yes.
It has got to do with issues of professionalism and quality, okay? So an established contractor who has delivered housing for a longer period might have the experience to do that for you in an efficient way, okay? However, that might come with additional cost over and above what a foreman might charge you, okay? So if you are thinking about cost, it might be the case that perhaps using a foreman as against a contractor might be cheaper, okay? So if your goal is to minimize cost, then you would be interested in using, say, a foreman. But what you need to do is to ensure that the foreman has the requisite experience and expertise to guide the other laborers or the other human capital you'll be engaging on the project to deliver the quality you are looking for. You get it? Yeah, so that would be my response to you.
Okay, great. So a personal question. You know, in Ghana, the issue of procuring land has become a major concern. And you buy land today, and then tomorrow someone else will come and tell you it's for them. And then you have land guards and all of these lands. You know, and the general problems that it comes with, what would be your advice in someone who wants to procure land to begin to build on it?
Okay. So this is what I'll say. This is the point. First, you must ensure that whoever purports to sell or whoever is trying to sell land to you owns that land he is trying to sell to you. Okay? So the first thing you would want to do is to get a site plan from the person, even before you pay for the cost of the land. And then with a site plan, you can go to the Lands Commission and do a formal search of ownership. So through that process, the Lands Commission will generate a report for you and indicate to you whether the one purporting to sell the land to you actually owns the land or not. And that should help you make a better decision. So if it turns out that the person does not own the land, then it means that he doesn't have the right to sell it to you. So you avoid paying any money to that person. Unfortunately, for many people, they end up paying for the land even before they do a search. And that is where the problem is. So make sure you don't pay any money to the landlord before you do a search. Be sure that the landlord owns the land he's purporting to sell to you before you make any capital expenditure on the land. Yes. I mean, okay, I can give you so many examples. Quite recently, we were trying to buy some land somewhere around the Afienya area. And that we are told that that land was acquired compulsorily by the state somewhere in the 1977, okay, from the owners of the land. And according to this person who was purporting to sell the land to us, he claims the government has released the land back to the original owners. And he has acquired a lease from the chief, and so he can sell the land. It was when we went to the Lands Commission to do our search, we realized that the title of those lands was still in the name of the state. What that meant was that that person who was trying to sell the land to us did not have a right to sell it. You get it? So we were able to minimize our cost in the process. We avoided it. I have a colleague who was also trying to buy land somewhere around Tema. Unfortunately for him, he had paid about 50,000 already, only for him to move to the site to start some construction work. And then another person came to the site with a more superior document that he bought the land years, about a decade before him. Okay, so he went through the process to find out from them, and he realized that there is a family feud over the land. And actually the person who sold it to the other person who came to the land was the actual owner of the land. So his money is currently locked up somewhere. So please make sure you do your search before you make any capital expenditure on the land. Yes, so I think Nanaya is back now. And so I will allow him to give us an idea of the estimates or the cost estimates involved in putting up a building. Yeah, so Nanaya, take over.
Yes, thanks, Ken, and sorry everyone, but my laptop decided to shut down on me today, to freeze and shut down on me today. But as we always say, the devil is a liar, so I'm back. So I'll straight off go to this. Can you see the spreadsheet?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, cool. So basically, I've developed a some form of model for discussion where I've applied unit rates to just give you an overview of what you look at in terms of price of coming at each level. So as Ken has already said and discussed about the land, I think we would go for from the land. The drawings is normally based on a percentage. It used to first, the drawings cost was used to base on a percentage of the total cost. Now it's changing because it came to like people were like the architects are just designing it so that the cost goes up, so that their fee goes up as well. So now the system has changed to an effect where they just give a standard price based on the number of floors, the complexity of the drawings and everything. But you should be looking at an average of, let's say you're putting up a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom house complete. You should be looking at approximately, let's say 20K here. That is even too much. I'm just giving it on the high side so that you know. And that 20K, 20,000 will be inclusive of the structural designs and your services designs as well. A lot of people just go with the architectural and not go with the structural. What I've realized is that when you do that, you don't get enough structural information, and that's what results in your building collapsing along the way. It normally doesn't happen with single story buildings, but if you want to go with a double story, then I recommend you go with structural drawings as well. When you come and you choose, this is based on a 3-bedroom house. The foundations, at least you should be looking at spending somewhere between a total of this brings it to about 45K for a single story. A total of a double, that same for the double story will bring it to 51,000. If you make a quick calculation, you'd get to know that by the time you're done with the foundation, you should be looking at about 12 to 15% of the cost already covered. And that is the most important part of the building. So as necessary as much as possible to spend as much as you can in the foundation according to what the structural engineer has told you to do. Because if the foundation fails, that is it. After that, we go to the frame, which is basically the columns and the beams. And with the columns and the beams, you should be looking at somewhere around also the same cost. Basically, they are hidden costs, but they are also expensive because sometimes the comparison between the concrete and all the information, the reels and structural component makes it very expensive. And mostly it's very expensive for the double story because it needs to carry more weight than the single story. Then you come to the building envelope. So by the time you're done with the frame, you are looking at somewhere around 12%, since that one is also the same, around the same price. But then if it's a double story, then you'll be looking at somewhere around 91,000. Somewhere around 15 to 16%. Then you come to envelope. When we say envelope, envelope is everything that covers the building. It includes roofs, it includes the walls, the external walls, the glazed windows, and anything that kind of envelopes the building. There are two ways in which you can reduce your cost or change your cost. Before I even continue, a cost of a building has so many dynamics and has so many parameters that can make it change from 100K to about 500K. It depends on what you want. And I'm saying this because we've gotten to where your choice actually makes a difference. Because with a foundation, there's no much choice about it. It's what has to be done, it's what has to be done. But when it gets to the envelope going forward, it's the choice. It depends on whether you want a Rolls Royce or you want a Toyota Corolla. If you want a Rolls Royce, you know Bentley, you know what you should expect. That would be a much higher cost. In this case, if you want to be safe, you just go with the block walls for the external walls. Some people prefer a lot of view and sunlight and everything. So therefore they'll go with glazed windows. Me, for instance, of course, if I'm building my own house, that's the first thing I would want, because it looks nice. It gives you the pleasure of you saying, my Bobra, I've lived life, but that would cost you. Comparing the difference, a glazed windows, if you just look at the difference between the rate for the glazed windows and the block walls, you are almost about $600, 600 cedis different. So you can imagine, depending on the square meters. So if you have a vertical wall area of about 100 meters squared, you should be looking at a difference of about 60,000 cedis, and that's a lot of money. But then it would give you the view. Then again, you can choose to go with you can choose to go with a roof slab, a concrete slab, or a metal cladding. Also, a concrete slab would give you a nice look. Now there is all these hidden roofs with parapet walls, yes, and you can get a concrete roof, put it on your poly tank and all that, but at the same time, it will be so much expensive than you going with a metal cladding. So then again, it comes down to what you want. Do you want the look, or do you want the functionality? Both will give you the functionality, but some of them will give you the look. And based on what you're actually looking for, it will tell you whether to go with this. And as a matter of fact, can I compromise on the slab? Can I compromise on this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Some people just go with the slab with a hope that they would continue another time. That is a very great idea. You might not be fully prepared to do a double story now. So then you can go with a single story with good foundation for a double story. You just put on a concrete roof and take your time. In some couple of years, you come back to continue. It's happened in places, and it's a perfect thing that goes on. But some structural engineers advise against that. Why? Because then it gives the building the opportunity to be worn down by weather. Also, when you start building it, you might, or the tradies might, if I say the tradies, I mean builders, the artisans, they might build it as if it's a single story, because that is what they have in their mind. And therefore, when you come to put on the top floor, it weighs so much to the extent that it results in cracks in a few years. So there are both ups and downs. You just have to make it clear when if that is your decision, and that depends on how ready you are. The next bit is the services. Then again, the services is also a big factor of the cost. That brings it to approximately 22% of the total cost. What is included here? What I've included here, for instance, is with the mechanical, I have AC in each room. You might not want to go with that, so you want to reduce it. If you reduce that, it brings it to about $30. If you take to 30 cedis. Sorry, I keep on messing the dollars and the cedis, but as I'm speaking in cedis, everything that I say should be in cedis. So then you can take it down to about 30 cedis per meter squared, and that would exclude your ACs and that will bring down your that should bring down your amount, your percentage to 20%. And you see how that big varies everything. This electrical is based on good quality cables, is based on everything that I've presented is based on a bit on the high side, is on the average, but it's a safe allowance, so that when you see the total figure, and it includes escalation, it includes inflation, because Ghana prices and everything goes up dramatically, let me put it that way. So this includes a safe allowance to at least take you to the next maybe year, or up till the end of next year. You should hoping everything doesn't change dramatically again. You should be expecting to spend this total cost that you see on a 3-bedroom house, and you would be safe. So I'll take it back to 100 to include all the ACs as well. Then it comes to finishes. Then again, this depends on what you want. Do you want a Benz or do you just want a Nissan? It plays a lot. If you want to go with scheming, you put it in. If you don't want, you just take it out. It reduces so many things you think is nothing, but it also gives you the appeal. You wake up in the morning, as I said, you wake up in the morning, you want to feel a sense of self-accomplishment that, yes, I've really built this house and I like it, and I like the way it feels, and I like the way it tastes. Painting and geotex coating is another cost against it. This cost is big because of the geotex coating. Geotex coating is more expensive, not more expensive, very expensive, but then it gives the house a feel of a bit of luxury. Let me put it that way. If you want to make both painting, so this one, the internal is painting, the external is geotex coating. If you want to make both painting, you are looking about something around 40. That takes about 20K. Is it? Yep. That takes about 5K off your cost. But I mean, what would 5K? 5K is money, 5,000 is money, no two ways about it. But I think it would give you the pleasure of living a good and a luxury life to some extent. The next big thing is the floor finishes and the ceiling finishes and the joinery. Also, the joinery is also a big thing. Which kind of finish do you want for your joinery? Do you just want timber laminate? Do you want veneer? Do you want stone tops in your bathrooms, in your kitchen? Do you want Caesar stone? Do you want, what kind of tiles, which kind of marble do you want in your kitchen? What finish are you looking for? And that plays a big role. If you look at it, that also brings you to a percentage of about 24 to 25% on your finishes. This is on average. And a lot of time, people spend more on finishes than anything. It gets to the finishes point and they're like, oh, I want this. I want it to look like this. I want it to look like this. And that's when the big costs start to triple in. It's best you have a clear definition of what you want before you even go there. Because when you get there, you might be so tempted with what you see and what is being presented to you that you might go for something that would end up being so much, and you'd come back saying, the QS advised me that the cost will be just 300K, now it's 400K. But then you would have forgotten that the finishes alone is over 150K. And that is where the big differences are. It's so appealing because the finish is the last thing that you see, and it's so appealing that if you're not careful, it would go overboard, especially with the joinery and the floor finishes. So it's best you have a clear definition before you move into your cost. The last bit is the external works, which is just based on what you want, basically. If you want, this is based on average, but if you want too much landscaping, that would increase. If you want but the last two, which is the underground disposal and the paving, is basically a standard thing that doesn't normally change because there is nothing you can do about it except you alter the area of the paving. But then again, it all also depends on what you want to see. In total, if you're looking at a single story, you're looking about 342K, including the external works, but without fence wall, but including all the external works. I've not included fence wall in here because fence wall varies. What's the size of the land will determine the fence wall cost. Which kind of fence wall do you want to put there would also determine. But basically the size of the land, because the bigger the land, the longer the fence wall, and therefore I've not included it in here. So this includes everything that you need to do in the house except the fence wall, including landscaping and everything. And this is for a double story of the same size of a single story, but in 2 levels. If you look at it, because of economies of scale, when you're building a double story, because you have so many things being done at the same time and therefore you're saving, the cost per unit reduces by approximately 50K. And that is, let's say, percentage-wise, you're saving 15% in building a double story of the same size as compared to you just building one single story. So to a large extent, I always tell people that if you have the resources, go with the double. You can rent the other unit out. In this case, I've analyzed it as if it's the same 3-bedroom downstairs that you're putting upstairs. If you have the money, just go for both, because in average cost, you'll be doing yourself so much good. You are saving 15%, as a matter of fact. But if you are not able to, you just go with the normal cost. A quick calculation, if you want to just do any calculation first of all, before you determine what you want, is the cost per meter square that you can see here. So you might want to just put it down somewhere. I'm more than happy to share this file anyway. If you want to build, you just calculate in your head, how many rooms do you want? A normal room, an average size room, measures about 10 meters square, between 10 meters square to 12 meters. Calculate it. I want maybe 4 bedrooms, maybe a living area of this size. Just put it together yourself, and you can multiply it by this cost per meter square, and it will give you a rough idea of how much you're looking to spend. That can help you do your budgeting. That can help you refine your space requirements. That can help you refine your area requirements, whether you can really afford a 5-bedroom or 4-bedroom. And then you can, before you can decide and go to the architect, you can be doing all this with the architect and it would help, but that would actually give you a scale of your budget, a scaling of your budget and how to expend it. And you should be in good hands if you do that. I think at this moment, I would end here and throw it over to Prof to continue.
Okay, so thank you very much, Nanaya, for a good presentation. I believe that the participants have gotten a good feel of the actual cost they might be incurring in the attempt to build a house. Earlier on, I had indicated that I was going to share or show you some of the costs that they might incur if they want to register their land or to even engage the services of a lawyer. Okay, so I want to go online and then show them some of these estimates from the websites of the Lands Commission and then the General Legal Counsel. Yeah, so Nanaya, you have to stop sharing your slide so that I'll be able to do that.
Yep, let me stop that now. Is it off now?
It is. Yep. Fantastic. Cool. So let's look at the land cost. Okay. So, okay. Yes. I hope you can see my screen once again.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. So I am on the website of the General Legal Counsel. So the General Legal Counsel is the body in Ghana responsible for the regulation of the legal profession. Okay, so they set the fees lawyers can charge. And so if you go to their website, you will be able to see a section where you can assess the approved GBA fees. Okay, so on this page, I have GBA approved fees for different scales of services. I think the most important component of cost you will be interested in at this point is the cost of engaging a lawyer for conveyance. So conveyance has got to do with the transfer of title from one owner to the other person. Okay, so there's a section called conveyance. And here you have the approved fees for that matter. So for example, if, and this conveyance fees you are likely to pay to a lawyer if you engage one is based on the value of the property you want to buy or the land you want to buy, okay? So if the value of the property is up to 20,000 Ghana cedis, then you are likely to pay a maximum of 15% of the value of that property. So this is the maximum, okay? Which means that if you are able to negotiate better, you can get a smaller rate, okay? If the value of the property is between 20,000 up to 100,000 Ghana cedis, then you'll be charged 15% for the first 20,000 and a balance of 12% maximum for the remaining, okay? And then if the value of the property is over 100,000 up 100,000, then you'll be required to pay 12% for the first 20,000 and a balance of 10 maximum for the remaining. And then if it is over 200,000 up to 500,000, then you pay 10% for the first 20,000 of the value of the property and a balance of 7.5% maximum. And then if it's over 500,000, then you pay 7.5 for the first 500,000 of the property value and a balance of 5% maximum. Now, there are other areas where you might engage a lawyer as well. So in terms of tenancy agreement, if your project is such that you need a very short-term arrangement with the landowner, that might constitute a tenancy. And so you might need a lawyer to help you come up with the proper legal arrangements. So that is it with the lawyers. You can go to the page and look at the cost details, the cost items in detail in engaging a lawyer. We can also have a look at fees approved by the Lands Commission, okay, for various services they render. Yeah, so the Lands Commission has 4 main divisions. So you have the Survey and Mapping Division, which is the SMD. You have the Land Valuation Division. You have the Private Invested Land Management Division, the Public Invested Land Management Division, and then you have the Land Registration Division. And for each one of this division that from which you will need a service, there are approved fees here for you to look at, okay? So as you can see, they have fees for preparation of a plan for your land certificate. Depending on the hectares, these prices will apply. If you want them to develop a cadastral plan for you, depending on the hectares of the land involved, they would also apply the appropriate fees, as you can see here. Yeah, so you can go through this page for yourself, and depending on what service you would want them to do for you or to render to you, you can see how to go about that. So basically, this is what cost is involved, or this is the cost involved in trying to register land or in trying to build a piece of property in Ghana. So I would go back to the host. Perhaps if he has anything to say, he'll say it before we zoom into the question and answer section.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. And then Mr. Osei for this wonderful presentation. For all of you asking if all the documents that have been shared would be sent to you, yes, they will. So what we need you to do is to go onto our website and then subscribe so that we have your mailing list to be able to send all the documents that these fine gentlemen have shared to you. A lot of questions have come through. So what we'll do is I'll start taking them one after the other. And then to all our participants, those who want to ask our speakers personal questions, raise your hand with the Zoom button. We'll unmute you and then you can talk to them. So the first question from Sandra Abrakwa. Would you advise buying an uncompleted building and completing it yourself? And then what kind of checks should be done before doing so, please?
Okay, another interesting question. The point is that for all that you want to do, you must have a goal, okay? Yeah, and so based on that goal, you would want to evaluate the options available to you. So, for example, why would I want to buy an uncompleted house? It's probably because it's in a very good location. You get it? So in property valuation, we often say that the value of a property depends on its value. You get it? So maybe you want to live very close to town and you have found a very interesting property, but uncompleted in a very good location. If your goal is to live very close to town, then that might be an interesting piece of option for you to look at. But my advice is that you must find out about the ownership of that property. Oftentimes, a lot of the uncompleted structures you find in town are uncompleted because of litigation. Okay, so once again, you also want to find out who owns the property, or else someone will sell a fridge to an Eskimo. Yeah, and you don't want such a thing. So first, what is your goal? Do you want to live very close to town? If you want to live very close to town, then a property close to town might be interesting. If you don't want to live close to town and you still find a property maybe very far away from town, at the outskirts of town, but the price is good, the design is also good, and the owner or the person purporting to sell the property to you owns the property per your search, then you can go ahead and buy it. It's just that you also need, for you to buy that, apart from the search of the ownership of the property, you might need some professionals to test the structural integrity of the property, because some of them may have been constructed years and years ago. And I mean, by virtue of they being exposed to the vagaries of the weather, may have lost their structural integrity. So you want an engineer, a structural engineer, to look at that for you. And of course, if you also want the property modified in a certain way, then you need an architect and also an engineer to help you with that process. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great.
Does Nanaya have something to add?
I think you're on mute. Can you please unmute yourself?
Is it okay now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay, I think Prof has said everything that I wanted to say. I'll just add to it that it also depends on the cost that you would incur to finish it. But the cost that you would incur to finish it also depends on the structural integrity of the building. So then it boils down to what Prof said. If you go and get a structural engineer and the structural engineer tells you that, oh, this building is very weak, it's not this, you would need to get this and this and this in order to get it. It helps you know that then you should be ready to cough up some more money to finish it up. And are you prepared to do that? But then again, it still comes back to the goal. Do you want to live closer to a particular place? Is that why you're getting the building? Yep.
Okay. So this one is from Gabuchi. He wants to know how one can save critically to be able to build a house in Ghana. Hello.
He wants to know how one can save to be able to build a house
in Ghana.
An interesting question. Anyway, I think there are solutions out there, financial solutions to enable you to save. One of them is that if you do a survey of the banks, they'll probably have some savings accounts you can use to build up some kind of savings for that matter. I think GHL Bank, before it was merged with FNB Bank came up with a program. It was actually a mortgage scheme where you will be required to contribute or save for the next 3 years, which will automatically qualify you for a mortgage, okay, to buy a house. So I'm sure if you contact FNB Bank, that product might be active, and yeah, that might be one of the options you will be interested in looking at. Yeah, so, or perhaps you would want to engage in some kind of susu arrangement with some trusted friends, where you contribute money with a goal of building a house, perhaps together. Okay, so each month you determine how much you want to put down, and then over a certain period you should have some accumulation which you can leverage to be able to acquire either a mortgage or to start your own building project. So yeah, I will advise strongly that you engage with the banks to understand the financial services or products available that you can use to do that. And of course, I mean, you can start your own project with your friends to save towards buying a house or buying a land. Yeah.
Okay. Surveyor, do you have anything to add?
I think Prof has said all.
Okay. So this one is from Alpha D. Where does your architect come in your building plan?
Okay, so I think I will allow Nanaya to answer that.
Okay, so it's a very nice question, and it's very critical when the architect comes in. I think it should be as early as possible, because the architect would help you refine your ideas. The architect has some basic knowledge about costings, and therefore would know that this space would help reduce your cost and this space will not help you reduce your cost. You know, there could be the same 3-bedroom house, but the spacing and arrangement of spacing, we have something that we call economization of space. If you don't get the architect at the right time, you might go into a lot of cost troubles. And I think it's best if you get the architect at the right time so that you can keep on refining your ideas as you go on, rather than getting the architect later. So the best time is to get it at him or her as soon as possible. As soon as you get the idea, you should get the architect.
Yeah, so and I would like to emphasize this because I've been working with the built environment professionals on this issue of engaging professionals to do professional work for you. So the question assumed that an architect is important, and rightly so, an architect is important. So as much as possible, if you have plans to build, make sure you engage an architect. Oftentimes, a lot of people think that a draftsman, for example, can replace an architect, but that is not the case, because draftspeople actually work under architects, okay? And they may not even understand the structural, I mean, the design principles that an architect understands, okay? So the architect is able to conceptualize the project, and then he instructs the draftsman to do the drawing sometimes, okay, if he is not doing it, okay? So please, and please again, I would emphasize this, once you want to do any building project, please find an architect, and that person should, so far as the person is registered by the Architects Registration Council, that person would guide you in the process of building your house, okay? You don't necessarily need an architect to supervise the project, but it is important that the person who designs the project, if the opportunity exists, should also be the person who supervises the delivery of the project for you. Else you have a situation where an architect would design something, a foreman who is trying to help you realize what the architect has designed might end up translating it differently. So you might end up with something else other than what the architect has designed, okay? And in terms of sustainability, it is very, 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 very important. Engage the architects. Yeah, thank you.
Well said.
Let me
Yeah.
add one thing to it. What I recently studied, I just got to know it recently, and it's so funny. I got to know it from the architect. Apparently, the positioning of the windows is relative to whether northeast or to northwest. So an architect can actually tell you that if you have a plot of land facing northwest, I think it was if it faces north, is better because then you save on electricity because of lighting, and it has some technicalities with the rising of the sun and everything. So you'll be so much impressed with what they can be able to tell you with respect to even getting the land where the land should be and making the land choice. So I think, and there was also another case where I had a same two projects of the same spatial, 3 bedroom. One didn't go with an architect, the other went with an architect. And if you look at the cost that came out from both, you think that you are paying the architect to do nothing. But then again, if you look at the cost, the final cost, it was very good that the person went with the architect because the cost difference on this project was about 50,000 cities aside the architect's charges.
Okay.
So it's very good if you go with the architect.
Yeah, I'm sure our participants are listening attentively, so they follow suit. We have one person who wants to ask a question, Standelos Inkum. So, Standelos,
All right,
please.
thank you very much.
Yes.
Please, I want to find out where does the work of an architect end in the building process? Because I have experienced an architect who claimed that he can build, and then he was actually given the work to do, and he couldn't, do the profile of the drawings he has done himself. So where do they end?
Okay, now.
Yes. Okay. Let me put it this way. They design and they can supervise the works, as Ken said. They can supervise the works from the start of the project till the end of the project to make sure that whatever was covered in the scope or your requirements has been carried out in a successful delivery at the end, and therefore you are getting what you asked for. Technically, some people would employ a project manager with the architect on the side as well. But it's very important that you have the architect through to the end. He can either be the supervisor or might just be a clerk of works. If I say a clerk of works, he will be representing you on the site, making sure that it's being built to requirement and it's being built to scope. Or at the same time, he can just be a standing consultant. If I say a standing consultant, as in he would be there and he will be just making regular site visits to make sure that everything is being done to as planned. But it's very necessary to have the architect at least do periodic inspections. Even if you don't want to involve the architect, assuming you have your own project manager, you don't want to pay the architect too much, at least he should be there periodically, maybe monthly, to see what is actually being done as according to what you asked for. Does that answer the question? So the time is that he should be there at least at the completion of the project. He should be there somewhere, either as a supervisor or as part of the final check or as an advisor, but at the end of the project he should be there.
Okay.
Yeah, so to add to that, the architect must be involved in design, and also if the resources exist, ideally you would want to involve him in the supervision of the delivery of that design. He may not be the one creating the formwork or laying the blocks, but he should be there at least to ensure that whatever he has designed, okay, is what the men or the laborers or the mason or the carpenter or whatever is, whoever is translating that design is delivering. You get it? Yeah. But
Okay.
it is just the case that oftentimes, because of budget constraints, we want the architect, or we even want the engineer or the quantity surveyor to do everything for us. And of course, they are rational people. So far as you are paying them for that, they would assume they can do it, and they will try to procure the services of some other people to do the work, which might not turn out very well. So you know that an architect is a designer, fundamentally. So if you want a design, you go to an architect, okay? Yeah, so take note of that. Don't force the professionals to do things outside their professional domain.
Okay, well said. So we have another person, Dakon Oscar. Dakon, can you please ask your question?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. Yeah, I would like to know. I had earlier, I wanted to secure like an uncompleted building. But I'm asking if there's an opportunity where when you are not ready financially, there's an opportunity for you to acquire the building and then you offload it in a gradual process.
What do you mean by offload it? As in dispose it, sell it?
Not sell it, but you making, let's say, maybe the institution will have an agreement that maybe every month you make a deposit of, let's say, 8,000, 5,000. Then, yeah, something like that.
I'm still not clear what you actually saying. So you buy it with your own money?
So, like, if you are going for a mortgage, that you know that you'll be paying.
Okay.
Yes, but something like a mortgage, which it doesn't restrict you that much.
Okay. Yeah. So the financial institutions, I don't want to do advert for any one of them, but ideally there are about 8 of them that are involved in providing mortgages or even some form of construction finance to individuals. So yes, I'm sure some of them will consider the idea of providing you with funds to buy an uncompleted house. But then the point is that if they give you the money, you would be required to pay monthly, as in service that loan on a monthly basis. Okay, so would you be interested in accessing money to buy an uncompleted house as against a completed house, where you would be paying for an uncompleted house and at the same time you'll be paying your rents in another house? So that is a form of consideration you need to make. Yeah, but I believe that if you have done your assessment and it's a good opportunity, the banks will not as in shy away from that good opportunity. They would look at it critically, and if you qualify for a mortgage to buy that uncompleted house, they will grant you the resources to do that. It's just that usually a lot of Ghanaians do not qualify because of their low levels of income. Yeah.
Okay, well said. Prof, before we continue, so we have a lot of questions coming through. I think it would be best if we try and limit the answers or make them short enough and precise. Okay. Okay, so we have another one from Sanita Ifua. If you have a land indenture, is there a central organization where you can attain the title or registration?
Okay, so an indenture is fundamentally or simply just a record of a transaction. Okay, so a chief owns a parcel of land and he's selling the land to you. An indenture records that transaction. Okay, so the Lands Commission in Ghana is the body responsible for recording or registering those deeds, okay, or those records you have, agreements you have struck with landlords. So if you want your indenture or your deed registered, you go to the Lands Commission and they will help you do that.
Okay. So this one is also from Kenneth Donkor-Hyiaman. What if the landlord makes copies of the site plan and sells it to more than one person?
Yeah.
What is there to be done in such a situation?
Yeah, so I cited the example of my friend who has bought a parcel of land that has already been sold. Indeed, that is one of the biggest problems we have in this country. Okay, multiple sales of land. Unfortunately, it is quite difficult to search through the Lands Commission system to know who exactly owns every parcel of land in Ghana. Okay, so landlords, especially the opportunistic ones, will take advantage of that. If it is a case that the land has been sold to multiple people, now the person who would eventually have legal rights to the land was the person who bought it first. Okay, the person who bought it first. Okay, and so all those who pay money for the same parcel of land after that perhaps have been defrauded, and so they may want to pursue that with the police, one, or they may want to go back to the landlord and recoup their money, which in most cases will not happen. They would attempt to either give you another parcel of land, or they will tell you to go and come back a number of times until you get tired. Yes, so that is why it is important you don't pay any money to anybody unless the Lands Commission has given you the green light to buy the land. Okay, so the options are very limited, but I think these are the few options available.
Okay, so before we go on again, to all our participants, we're streaming live on YouTube. Please subscribe and like our pages if you enjoy what we're doing, to be able to give you more in-depth content and topics like these. So one question from Theophilus Yeboah. Usually in most rural areas where family lands are, they do not have papers to the land because it is usually a family inheritance. How do you conduct a search on such a land when you try getting it from the family head?
Okay. So the point is that even in the rural area, all rural areas will fall under some district, one way or the other. Okay, and at those levels, there is supposed to be some kind of lands commission arrangement. Okay, where all the lands, one way or the other, details of such lands may be with the lands commission. Yeah, it is the case that they don't have data on every parcel of land. So what you need to do in this case is to get a site plan, of course, get an indenture or a site plan from the family head. You get it, the family head who is purporting to sell the land to you. If it is family land, the only person who can sell it to you is a family head. Okay, so once he gives that to you, you can do your first search at the Lands Commission close to where the land is, or the region where the land is. And then that might give you some information as to whether the head of the family, or the one who is trying to sell the land to you, actually owns it or not. Other than that, you'll be throwing your money away. Yeah, so you must do that. First, get the indenture or the site plan, and then proceed to the Lands Commission to do a formal search. Yeah, that can help you out greatly.
Okay. So another one, one from Ikea who's facing the problem. I am buying from a developer. I live in the UK. I have been told that the company is in court due to land. How do you advise I proceed?
Yeah, so if the company is in court and the land they want to sell to you is a subject matter of the court case, then I would advise you hold on with payment for the land until they settle the court case. Okay, and once the court case is settled, then you know who the rightful owner is to deal with. Okay, so yeah, that's my basic advice. Don't pay any money to any developer.
There is nothing like peace of mind, having your peace of mind. So you'd have to wait. There's nothing like having your peace of mind.
Okay. So this is from Celestine. Regarding the legals, example, a tenancy agreement, what is your thoughts on using templates found online?
Okay, so this is a problem. So the laws of Ghana might differ from the country where those templates were developed. Okay, and so there's what we call the essentials of a lease. Okay, and perhaps that template may not have those essentials. So if you use them, you might end up not filling in the right data or the required data for the lease to be properly executable. Okay, so it's important as much as possible you avoid those online templates unless you are sure that it provides for all the conditions required by the laws of Ghana. Other than that, I would advise that you get a lawyer to draft a lease for you. Yeah.
Okay. So we have people who have raised their hands. George Mauli Quest, can you please ask your question?
Okay. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good
Can you hear me?
afternoon.
Okay. My question is, what background check do I need to do in order to acquire litigation-free land? And my second question too is, why do I need to pay for a building permit in order to buy to build my house? To build a house I've paid so much for. I mean, to acquire. Why do I need to have a building permit? And thirdly, what documents do I need to look out for when I'm acquiring land from someone? Let's say someone has bought a land and is selling to me. What documents do I need to look out for?
Okay. So the third and the first question go hand in hand. So the legal principle is that whoever purports to sell something to you must be the owner of the land. Okay. So how would you know that someone is the owner of the land? This is how you do that. You can do a search at the Lands Commission. Okay. So the Lands Commission will give you an advice after the search, which will indicate the owner of that parcel of land. And then you can advise yourself as to whether the person who is trying to sell the land to you actually owns it or not. Now, what documents do you need to be able to use the services of the Lands Commission to do this? So you need to identify the land the person is trying to sell to you. So that is the physical boundaries of the land. And so a site plan from that person would then help greatly. Which site plan you can take to the Lands Commission, and then they would map it onto their system and then indicate whether the land belongs to the person or not, or whether that land is a subject matter of some form of encumbrance. You know, sometimes you buy land which has been zoned for another use. You want to build a house, but this land has been zoned for commercial uses. Maybe the town and country planning, it's currently called the Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority, prefers that the land is used for maybe an industrial space or as an industrial property. So it has zoned it as for industrial use. So the Lands Commission will be able to tell you all of this. Okay, so one, get the site plan from the one who is trying to sell the land to you before you make any payment to him. And then you take that to the Lands Commission to do a formal search. And then they will advise you accordingly on who the owner is. Now, your second question says that, why should you pay for development permitting? Okay, so the idea is that, one, at the local government level, you need to know the zoning of the land, whether the land you have bought is suitable or has been zoned for residential uses. Okay, as I said earlier on, you might end up buying land which has already been zoned for something else. So to know that, you go to the district assembly, and then they will check their system to ensure that your land conforms to the planning of the area. And of course, the permit they give you is an administrative cost. It will cover the cost to you. Okay, so it is important you use that service. I know that there are challenges in there in terms of efficiency, but it's important you use that just to make sure that you avoid any risk of buying land which is not suitable for the project you want to put up.
Okay.
Prof, let me just add to that. Also, you would have to know, some lands have big drainage, stormwater drainage passing through. You would want to know whether your site is in a way of a drainage or anything that would affect. I've known people who've started construction, they didn't go for permit, and almost at roofing level, the council guys came, were like, you have to stop work, come and see, there's the planned area. And it clearly shows that there was a big waterway passing through, and therefore they had to demolish the building. In this case, you have lost. You can't do anything to them because if you had come to them, they would have told you, oh, this is going to be like this. So therefore you have to change your plan, or you have to go and look for a new site. So it's very important you go for a permit always. It might be a slow process, but there is always an expedited process of getting it. It's very necessary you get a permit.
Okay. So we have another person, Ben, who wants to ask a question. Okay, so Ben, you're live.
Yeah, so
hello, Ben. Hello. Okay, I think we can't hear from Ben. So okay, so I'll just go ahead and ask the question.
Yes, the search at Land Commission. Not only one type of search. I can elaborate on the particular type of search that needs to be done.
Yeah, so can you repeat the question, please?
Hello, Ben.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you are clear now.
Yeah, so Prof, you mentioned a search at the land. There's more than one type of search. I think one of them is called title search, and then there are a number of other types. So please, if you could elaborate on the particular type of search that needs to be done at the Lands Commission.
Okay, so there's the point. Usually, some people will say that if you need to do a search, you need to go to the survey and mapping division to do a search there. You need to go to, in fact, all the divisions of the Lands Commission to do a search to be sure of what is happening there. But the key type of search you need to do, for example, to build a property, is a title search. You just want to be sure that the land you are buying belongs to the one who wants to sell it to you. And so what you do is a title search. Now, all the internal search works that will be done at the various divisions of the Lands Commission is meant to give you a final report that, okay, we've looked at, and there's a reason. The reason is that sometimes some parcels of land have been recorded by the survey and mapping division, which the lands registration division do not have. You get it? And so you need to go through all of the divisions to be able to come up with a final decision as to what the search looks like. So sometimes what some people do is that they do a search at the survey and mapping division to know of the map of the area and whether anyone actually owns that parcel of land. They may also go to the land registration division to do a search there. And of course, I mean, they may also apply to the Lands Commission for a general search. So the key point here is that just go to the Lands Commission, say that you want to do a title search. It is their responsibility to do a search through all their divisions to give you a final report, which will reflect the state of land ownership across all the 4 divisions of the Lands Commission. Hello, Eric. Let's see. Okay, so it appears the host will be coming back. But I have 2 questions that I want to answer. Actually, these are questions we have answered in our previous engagements with other groups of people. And so I will go back to my slide again and share this question with you whilst we wait for the host to come back.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I think Eric has a connection issue at the moment.
Okay.
So I'll just take over and then read out a couple of questions from the audience. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so my name is Prince Henry Danko. I'm also a partner at investingh. For those of you who are used to us, you know me. Okay, so there is a question from Bennett. He wants to know, what are your thoughts on container homes as a source of short-term housing in Ghana?
Okay. I think there are container homes littered all over the country, isn't it? Yeah, the concept is all over the place already. Yeah, so, and it serves a good purpose because for many of the people who can't afford the brick and mortar, that's where they find rest after a hard day's work, right? So I think one is a good concept. It's just that oftentimes it is not planned, and that is where the problem is. You see, you have them littered all over the place, and they tend to create some kind of a slum, and that is what we need to avoid. So if we can plan it very well, design it properly to serve the purpose that brick and mortar can serve, I think that within the short term, even in the long term, medium to long term, it might be a good option for many people, if it can even be made cheaper. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. I have another one from Harry. Harry wants to know, is there a way to confirm if a real estate company is duly registered under the laws of Ghana before working with them?
Yeah, of course. So I believe if you go to the Registrar General's department, you can find out that about that. But then you can also request a registration document from the company you want to deal with. Okay. So if you have already started engaging them, you can ask them to supply you a document which shows that they are registered under the laws of Ghana, which permits them to transact in the kind of business they are purporting to, or the kind of services they are offering to you. Okay, you can do that. And if the person is a real estate developer, you may even want to go beyond just the registration document. You may want to find out if the person is registered by any professional or trade association. Okay, so for example, the Ghana Real Estate Development Association, Developers Association, is one of the people you can consult to assure yourself that this person you are dealing with is registered with them or not. And usually, there's a point. before they can register with the trade associations, would have checked their registration documents. And so if you go to them, you can check. They might be a source of good information for you.
Okay, so Mr. Osei, this one will be for you. Someone is asking, is a brick house more expensive to build? Brick house?
Yes, it's more expensive to build. In Ghana, it's more expensive to build a brick house. Why? Because even though the material is easily accessible, it's just bent clay, the supply is less, and therefore there is a high demand as the play of the market, demand and supply. That's why it's more expensive. But if there were more supply of bricks, then eventually it would have been cheaper than blocks. Currently, at the moment, there is an increasing supply of bricks. So the price of brick house is coming down. It's gradually reducing, but at the moment it's more expensive. Yes, but then it gives you the good look. So maybe you would want the good look anyway.
Yeah, and I think that then again, beyond the interplay of demand and supply, I'm sure some developers will also tell you that if you want to use bricks, you might need more at a higher cost. You get it? And of course, the labor cost in terms of laying the brick might also be higher because
they are very small.
Yeah, so that can also add to the cost of building.
Okay. Also, someone wants to know if you want to build a 3-bedroom, on the second floor, do you have to use the cost per square meter? I think it's a technical question, so they can handle that part. You have to use cost per meter square for the double floor building. I mean, according to your model.
Yes, you can use the cost per square meter. In this case, the coverage area won't be just the ground floor. It would be the ground floor plus the first floor.
Okay.
Yep. So you use that against the square meter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Is there a requirement for a building permit in Ghana here? And what are the processes that one has to go through to acquire a building permit?
Yes, there is a requirement for a building permit in Ghana. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't use it. Yeah, because of the inefficiencies of the system. So you make some submissions to your district assembly. So they are basically the entities responsible for granting you a building permit. So if for example, if where you want to develop your project is at Lejokuku Municipal Assembly, you need to make an application to them. So usually you go and then the law will prescribe certain things. You need to put in an application. You need to supply certain documents, including the design of the project you want to put up. And of course, what they will do then is to find out whether it meets first in terms of the zoning of the area, whether what you want to use the land for conforms to the zoning, and secondly, whether whatever you want to put up is properly designed, okay, and will be habitable once you put it up. So first, you need to contact your municipal assembly or your district assembly, and then they will give you the details of what you need to put in. Ideally, 2 of them would be: one, you put in an application, and then you need to supply them with the design of your building. And then there might be some additional documents you need to supply to them for them to be able to assess the suitability of the project you want to do.
Okay. This is another question from Vaga. It says that, what advice do you have for someone who wants to flip houses?
Okay. So can the person explain further what he or she means by flipping houses?
Okay, I think by flipping houses, buying, renovating it, and then selling it later, as a business.
Okay, so that is a type of real estate investment strategy we call the value-added strategy. Okay, so
yeah,
I think it might be a good opportunity depending on the assessment the entrepreneur has done. Okay, so it boils down to issues of demand, the cost involved, and the revenue you are going to generate from it. So if, for example, the location is right and there's a demand for a particular use, and you think that, okay, converting or buying a property that is already constructed in that form will suit the demand on the market, then why not? Then again, if you do your cost estimates and your revenue estimates, and for that matter, your appraisal, and you are making a profit, then hooray, it's great. You can go in for it. But then it's often the case that a lot of people don't do proper appraisal. And so they might end up making a loss instead of making a profit. So engage an expert to do an appraisal for you. And when I say an appraisal, I don't mean any person with a degree in finance or investment. You need a surveyor, and particularly someone, those surveyors who are real estate professionals, who understand the market to be able to do an appraisal for you. Typically, I wouldn't advise you go to other professionals who do not have the expertise to do that appraisal for you. Some of them may purport to have the skill, but they may not have the appropriate skill to help you out. So yeah, if it is profitable and it conforms to the regulatory requirements, then it's a good investment to go into.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Eric is here, so Eric will take over. Eric. Okay, Eric is frozen again. One more question. What are the requirements? Okay, I think you've answered something around this. So Frederick wants to know, is the excavation cost calculated based on the area of the floor or the volume of soil to be excavated?
Okay, so I think Nanaya will answer that.
Okay, so is the excavation cost?
Something happened and I zoomed off. I don't know what happened, but I've been able to reconnect. So back. Yes. Can you hear me?
Eric, we can hear you, but I think you are very slow.
Yeah, Eric's network.
Okay, so go with the question again. You said cost of excavation.
Is the excavation cost calculated based on the floor area or the volume of the soil?
No, on the volume of the soil. Okay, so per my model, it's per the floor area.
Oh, okay.
But in general, if you are presenting it in a bill of quantities, if he receives an estimate or with anything, it would probably be in the volume of excavation. But per my model, I've converted it into per floor area.
Okay, sure. There's this question from Kwabna Asari. Can an architectural drawing of a project be used for another project in a different location?
Okay, that's interesting. I don't think there's any problem in applying the same drawing to another location, so far as the ground conditions and issues of orientation are the same. Okay, so the caveat is that the design may be the same, but sometimes, and in fact, oftentimes, it must be remodeled to suit the ground conditions of the location where you are trying to reapply that design to. And perhaps even the orientation of the building may have to change, okay, on this new site. And so, yes, there's nothing wrong with applying the same design, but you want to make sure that the conditions for the land for which that design was prepared is the same as the second place or the third place you want to implement that design on. Oftentimes, it is not the same. So you need some kind of remodeling. So you need to go back to the architect to remodel it to suit the conditions on the new site.
Okay. There's a follow-up question to what you said earlier. You know, there was a question on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
One of the comments, someone was asking, you know, there are project designers, and then there are architects. I think architects are like professionally qualified, you know, designers. So do you necessarily have to go to an architect for the design, or if you have someone who is not, you know, certified, but the person is into designing and modeling houses, you can also go to the person?
Okay, so I think I answered this by saying that the goal of the person requesting the service is important. So usually a lot of people don't go to architects because they think they can cut down cost. But whilst you can achieve that goal, you may end up with a poorly designed property, okay? That may be expensive to build, that may not be sustainable. Okay. So the point is that an architect is more or less, he's an expert when it comes to designing property. Okay, so he's the first person you need to get to. If anyone purports to be a designer, a project designer, you want to find out if the person has the training, the skill, and the expertise to design something for you. Okay, so for example, if you come to me, if maybe I am an entrepreneur and my company maybe purports to provide designs for people, what you want to find out is whether the leader of that company has the professional qualification to design anything for you. Am I an architect in the first place? If I'm not, then the next question is, do I have or have I employed an architect to lead the process of design in the company? If not, then I'll ask you to run away. Else you might end up with a poorly designed building that might cost you more to put up.
Okay, I think I'll take this as a final question. Charles wants to know, do you need a GPS location of a land to do its title search?
Okay, I think a GPS location is just one of the ways to identify the physical location of land, okay? Which will be a requirement if you go to the Lands Commission to register your land. And even if you want to do a search of the ownership, that might also come up.
Okay. I have a personal question. Okay.
Okay.
So for those of us who are young, okay, and we want to start building something, looking at the templates that you shared, looking at costs in the hundreds of thousands, it's going to take a very long time for people to come up with such an amount. So Mr. Osei, can you briefly, take us through, how much it will take, how much it will cost, someone in his early 30s or late 20s to build maybe a chamber and hall somewhere, or a single room self-contained that a person can, stay in for, a few years while the person gets his life together. Something brief, a brief one, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, just to, come down to our level. Yeah.
Okay, so I think probably let me reshare the screen. That would help a bit so that I can go through the calculations a bit with you.
Yeah, but you see, before that, I would like to make a point. The point is that the cost of building is not sensitive to your age. You get it? So you need to take note of that. So whether you are young or old, building a house will not, the cost of building a house will not necessarily change. You get it? Oftentimes it is your taste. So if you know you are young, your income is low or small, for that matter, you cannot afford what the rich people are affording, then it's good to settle for something lower than that. Okay, so that is how come issues of renting becomes interesting. Or you may want to partner with your friends, okay, put your resources together to buy, let's say, land. And then you may want to intensify the use of the land. So instead of only you buying a parcel of land for maybe 50,000, 3 or 4 of you can come together, buy one parcel of land for 50,000. If you divide the 50,000 by 4, the unit price or the cost per person drops drastically. And then you can develop the house gradually. So maybe if you are 4, you can choose to put your resources together to do maybe a 4-bedroom. First, all of you will move into one of them, and gradually you will develop it upwards until you have maybe 4 floors for each one of you to occupy one floor. Yeah, so usually it's about the individual adjusting or making adjustments to his taste and preference. That is key in determining whether you'll be able to buy a house or not. Yeah, so I think Nanaya will take us through that.
All right.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So basically, if you say a chamber and hall, Ken, I think Prof has said everything. It depends on your taste. When I started, I said it. It depends on whether you want a Rolls Royce or you want a Corolla S. And it varies a lot. It varies a lot.
5
If
minutes.
we go,
5 minutes.
yes, no problem at all. If we go for something like a chamber and hall, with this quick calculations, you should be looking at chamber and hall maybe 6 meters by 3 meters without a kitchen. If you want a kitchen, so without a kitchen, it quickly brings you to 68K.
Wow.
Let's say, yes, let's add a kitchen.
Yeah, let's add a kitchen.
So if you add a kitchen, let's say another 9 square meters, plus a few bit of space to just play, let's say a veranda, let's say 3 square meters, that brings you to 95,000.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, if I take out the veranda, meaning you strictly according to management, 88,000.
Okay.
Yes. If you can take out scheming, if you don't want to scheme, you just paint it normal. You can just do a normal painting. That brings it to 86,000. You can reduce your floor finishes, go for some cheap tiles.
At least we have a fair idea. Roughly 80,000, 70 to 80,000 can get
70 to 80,000. Yes. You can reduce your joinery. You don't need a laminate. You don't need an expensive thing. You can just reduce it. 80,000 will do the job. 70 to 80, you can do something. And again, all these rates include escalation up till next year. I've written up till next year, July 2021. So assuming you are building now, up from now till this money would be good enough as at next year, July 2021.
Okay. You know,
and sorry, and it excludes the land cost. So
this excludes the land cost. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So for the benefit of the audience and for those who receive this document after the webinar, we would appreciate it if you could add the chamber and hall section to your sheet so that middle income earners will be inspired a bit, because The
No
double
problem at
story and the
all.
single story scares a lot of people from
No
the
problem at
comments
all.
that we are receiving. Yeah.
No
Okay.
problem at all. So I'll put a chamber
Yeah.
and hall against it.
Okay. So whilst you were talking, we still had a few questions coming. So if you permit me, I'd like to ask some 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah, that's no problem at all.
Okay. So can an architectural drawing of a project be used? Oh, okay. This one has already been asked.
Yeah.
I think. Okay. So what is your opinion on using laterite bricks to save costs? That's what someone is saying.
Nanaya will answer that.
Okay, as something that has come to notice now, a lot of people have started using the laterite bricks. It depends on where you are sourcing it from.
Okay.
Yes, it basically depends on where you are sourcing it from and the size that they come in. If it's molded in the normal block size, then the cost difference shouldn't be too much. But then if they are molded in smaller pieces to just get that brick effect, then the cost then comes up again.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sure. I think that's all the questions we have at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a few questions that was sent to me privately. I'll just tackle one of them because most of them has already been answered. Someone asked the total square meter of a building. Can you calculate it using the concrete areas of the floor bed, or you will only use the rooms and the corridors? It's a very nice question. This is gross floor area. Gross floor area is basically the area between one external wall to the other external wall. So it excludes open porches.
Okay.
It includes the area covered by the internal walls, and it includes the area covered by the external walls.
Okay.
So just to clarify that in case you're calculating your.
I think for most of these things, the surveyor will be in charge, right?
Yeah. Hello.
For
so Prince.
Or the contractor. You know,
for
the
what?
floor area and.
Oh no, the floor area would already have been drawn on by the architect.
Okay.
Yeah, the floor area would have been drawn by the architect. The surveyor would just come and set out everything that has been drawn by the architect.
Sure.
And you,
This
the
is a
client,
personal
will choose the
question for both of you. So our audience want to know what businesses that you have and how they can use your services.
Prof, go for it.
Okay, so both of us are partners at Metis Brokers, which is a real estate consultancy business. So what we do is that we invest in shops, okay, commercial property. So we build shops for low and middle income kind of SMEs, basically. Yeah, so we have a number of shops around in Accra, which we have rented out. But then we also provide advisory service. So if you need a quantity surveyor, for example, to cost or give you an idea of how much it's going to cost you to put up a building, we can provide that service. If you're also thinking in terms of investment, where you want to do a flip, you know, buy an uncompleted structure and develop it, maybe to rent it out or to sell, we can help you with the appraisal of that investment. Okay, so we can advise you on whether it is a viable investment to do or not. And of course, through us, you can get access to some cheap but quality architectural designs as well. So these are some of the things that we can help you do, especially with your buildings and then your how do I call it? Your property investment that you may be contemplating. Sometimes you may also need a project manager. So you already have your plans, your designed by an architect, you've had your costing done by a quantity surveyor. You need a project manager to supervise the delivery of the project. Yeah, we can also help you access qualified project managers who have the requisite experience to deliver quality for you. Yeah, so these are things we can help you with.
Okay, okay.
One interesting question that I just realized, I'll just make this quick. Someone asked the question that, what is my model based on? Is it based on Accra prices or is it based on Kumasi prices? Because there's a lot of variance. True, actually. It's a very nice question. Kumasi prices are very cheap. Everybody knows that. My model is based on an average between the two, but geared more towards Accra, so as to make it safe. So this is more of 80% like Accra. So if you are in Kumasi and you want to have a fair idea of the cost that this would give you in Kumasi, just run it down by, let's say, somewhere around 8%, 92%, 90% of this cost will be probably what Kumasi's price will be around.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Prince, there is a question I want to address because it's a subject matter of interest to me. So there's a question from Kweku Asuma. And his question is it always important to pay an architect for a design, or you can get one online and get an architect to help deploy it? Yeah, so once again, the answer to this question is that the architect is a master of design, okay? Now, the problem with, procuring a design online and getting an architect to supervise it is that there's a tendency that the architect will have to modify the design to suit the conditions of the land. So most of these designs you find online were probably designed for a country like the US or the UK. The environment is very different. So if you want to translate that, some people will call it abrochedan. Abrochedan. If you want to do that in this environment, you might end up with a very inefficient building. Okay, so, and it might cost you even more money to get it remodeled. Okay, so the best thing is to find a local architect who is qualified and has the requisite experience and skill to design something for you. So I would easily avoid buying something online which does not take into account the ground conditions of my land, and then I try to get an architect to do that. You might end up spending more money on that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Sherman and then Mr. Osei. To our audience, we would like to end our discussion here. However, we will make this webinar recording available for streaming on YouTube and also maybe on our Facebook page as well. But we would want you all to subscribe and like our videos, so that you will support us grow our brand and then our network. Also, we have WhatsApp groups that you can join and receive educative information and financial news updates on a daily basis. And we'll share the link in the chat section. You can also visit our website at www.investinggh.info for more information on how to get access to our previous webinars and how to get in touch with the partners of Invest in GH. Once again, thank you all very much for joining us. We appreciate spending 2 hours of your time with us this afternoon. I know most of you have some football matches you would like to watch and all, but thank you for joining us today. We are grateful. We will come your way again in 2 weeks, I think, or 3, with another interesting topic, and we hope to see you again. But before we go, Mr. Sherman and Mr. Osei, do you have any final, words for our viewers?
No.
Okay, but What I'll finally say is that it's good to get the right professionals to give you the right advice. You might think you might think you are saving costs by not employing the architect or the quantity surveyor or the structural engineer, but trust me, in the long run, you would incur more cost because your building will be structurally deficient. At some point in time, you have to make more structural works because you didn't get the structural guy, or you'll not be able to get the space what you wanted, and that will be economical because you didn't get the architects and the QS. So it's always good to get the right guys, and we are always there to help you. If you have any question, just give us a call.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Sherman. What about you?
Oh, he's said all that I want to say.
He said it all.
Yeah, I want to encourage people to use professionals. It's very important. Yeah.
We would also like to thank you for, honoring our request today and joining us, for being our speakers. We hope that the next time we have a conversation on real estate investment or building, we invite you, you would be available to join us again.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Yeah, the files will be available in your mails and then also in our WhatsApp groups. So join us and we'll see you again next time. Thank you and have a good afternoon or evening, wherever you find yourself.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.